Warning, major plot spoilers ahead. Finally, after 13 years of development, we have Kingdom Hearts 3 in our hands.
No, that's wrong!
What is up guys, my name is Jodan, and I beat Kingdom Hearts 3 3 times now. First on Standard, that was a huge mistake, then on Proud, and finally on Critical. 2 of the 3 playthroughs were 100% runs. Yes, I am crazy, and I do have no life. So now I feel like I'm ready to give my full thoughts on the game, including the Critical Mode update, which, spoiler alert, makes the game way better in my opinion. Now before I start, I think it's important with a Kingdom Hearts game review to know the reviewer's connection to the series. So many people have grew up with this game series and waited over a decade for its next main title. I'm not one of those people. I'll try and explain it as briefly as possible, and if you don't care, just skip to this time. During E3 2018, the Kingdom Hearts 3 hype was insane, so I decided to pick up the PS4 collections. Then after beating all the games in the collections, except Rechained, because you're not gonna make me play with those goddamn cards, it shortly after became one of my favorite game franchises of all time, KH2 being my favorite out of the bunch, which is now one of my favorite games of all time. It only took a few months to beat them, so after that I was so ready for Kingdom Hearts 3. The hype built up, and I feel like I was really part of the community online. Now with that out of the way, let's begin. First let's start with the story. I'm not going to go that in depth with the story, I'm just going to briefly touch on my thoughts. Overall, I thought this game's story was a great conclusion to the Darkseeker saga. It seems like many people misunderstood what this was the last game of. It's not the last Kingdom Hearts game, it's the last game of the Darkseeker saga. It's not supposed to tie up all the story threads, and I think it did what it was trying to do pretty well. There were a lot of cutscenes and not the best dialogue.
I do know hurt.
But that's what you've come to expect in a Kingdom Hearts game by now. I think the Disney World stories were handled pretty well for the most part. The worlds that had the best stories were the ones that made a new one for this game, and not just reuse the old story with an anime boy, a dog, and a duck shoved into it. What they didn't handle well, however, was giving reasons for Sora, Donald, and Goofy to explore these worlds. Yes, you have to say Sora, Donald, and Goofy in that exact order.
Sora, Donald, Goofy!
Sora, Donald, Goofy.
Sora, Donald, Goofy, Sora, Donald, Goofy.
Sora, Donald, Goofy, Dora! Goofy!
Sora, Donald, Goofy.
On another note, I thought everything about the story post San Francisco was just amazing, but it sucked the story only really picked up after there, and wasn't spread out more in between the Disney worlds. The reunions between characters were really nice and fulfilling. To close this section of the review, the treatment of Axel and Kairi was really disappointing for me, and why did they have to make our boy get Thanos snapped in the last 3 seconds of the game? Just left me, and I'm sure others, feeling really weird and confused about it. Next up is my favorite, the gameplay. My personal most important part of the game, and any game for that matter. Let's start with the combat. If I had to describe the combat, I'd definitely say it's a mix of 0.2 and Kingdom Hearts 2. This time around we're back to the command menu, and I'm really glad we are. It's a vanilla ARPG hack and slash action we all love. As always, you have a selection of abilities and combo modifiers to choose from, and I think they're very solid in this game. At the beginning of the game we were blessed with a ton of movement options right away, like dodge roll, air slide, and flow motion. I loved having these movement options right at the start, unlike KH2, where you start with almost nothing. One of the biggest new movement options is the wall running, which allows Sora to run up glowing walls, really making the worlds feel more vertical. Shot locks are also brought back from Birth by Sleep with a new twist, Air Step, which you can use to warp to enemies in certain areas, which is very fun and a welcome addition. I'll touch on shot locks a bit more once I get to the Keyblades. Sora's running movement feels a lot more smooth in comparison to the previous games. One of the biggest worries leading up to the game was the floatiness of the combat, and thankfully I didn't think it was a problem at all, and this is thanks to being able to block in midair. This is a really welcome addition, and I find myself trying to do this when going back to the previous games. In this game, magic spells are really overpowered, but I think Critical Mode fixed this by having your MP bar. Reaction commands from KH2 are replaced with situation commands that you can get randomly, or by building up this meter of arrows above the command bar. These commands can unleash powerful team attacks, grand magic, which is the ZA version of certain magic elements, Attraction Flow, or Transformations for Sora, more on the last two later. You can sort through these attacks when they stack by pressing L2 or LT, which works really well. On the topic of Attraction Flow, they are random situation commands of Disney rides that are a little gimmicky and get a bit old after the first playthrough. Thankfully, in critical mode there's an ability that lets you turn them off, so everyone wins. Probably the most important addition to the game is how they changed up the Keyblades. Every Keyblade has a transformation for Sora, which are pretty similar to the dry forms in KH2, built up by the arrow meter mentioned earlier. This is by far my favorite new aspect of the gameplay. The forms change up gameplay so much and keep it really fresh. I might go more in depth on form changes in a future video, so I'll just save most of it for then. Just know that Counter Shield is absolutely godlike. Anti-Form Sora also returns, this time being a blessing instead of a curse. You can choose whether or not to activate it when it shows up as a situation command, and it fully restores your health if you do so. Each Keyblade can also be leveled up by giving them extra strength, magic, and abilities, making any of them viable at any point in the game. The last addition to Sora's arsenal, I really hope I'm not forgetting any, are Links, which basically replace summons. They're really powerful attacks that cost a full MP bar. I had no use for these in my Proud and Standard mode playthrough, but in critical mode they're a really good option, and a little bit exploitable as well. As you can probably tell, Sora's really strong and has a ton of options in this game, which I think is a great thing. We'll talk more about how that affects the overall difficulty later. Moving on from Sora, your party has seen a bit of a change too. It seems the AI on the party members are just straight up better, and it's really hard to get mad at Donald now. You can also have 5 total party members now, instead of a maximum of 3 in previous games. Now there's no need to choose over which party members to bring, which I really appreciate. Next we have the meals Sora can consume. These give you various stat boosts depending on what you make. They can be made by ingredients.
This might be a good spot to find some ingredients.
Yes, those ingredients that you can find throughout the worlds or buy at Moogle shops. After collecting the ingredients, you can make the meals at the bistro in Twilight Town by doing mini games ranging from extremely easy to near impossible.
Oops. Oh. Sorry.
Let's now touch on one of the biggest complaints about Kingdom Hearts 3 post-release, the difficulty. When the game came out, there were 3 difficulty modes to choose from. Beginner, being for, well, beginners, Standard, being the normal difficulty mode most players are suggested to play, and finally Proud mode, the challenging difficulty mode. Now obviously you could probably tell by my short history with the series, I'm not an expert at the combat of these games, and with that I can still say Beginner, Standard, and Proud difficulty modes are too easy compared to what the descriptions of the difficulty modes and the difficulty modes in the previous games would suggest. Sora is just way too powerful in this game, making a lot of things a breeze to get through, minus some bosses, if you choose the difficulty mode that best suits you as a player. What fixes this problem for me is the free update for critical mode difficulty. This mode will challenge even the best of players and makes the game so much more replayable. It really forces you to time your blocks correctly and to take advantage of Sora's entire arsenal and options. Links in the meals are almost crucial sometimes. It even adds some great new abilities such as Critical Converter, which disables attractions in exchange for more form changes, which I mentioned earlier. I love critical mode, and it's my preferred way of playing the game now. You'll also see this screen a lot, so that's pretty nice too. I suppose now I should talk about the gummy ship section of the game. Now I've never really been a fan of the gummy ships ever since KH1, but they're pretty fun here. It's very open world, so you have the ability to explore a lot and engage in battles whenever you want, which I suppose is nice. It's just not my cup of tea. Get me back to that JRPG action. I can definitely say that this is the best gummy ship for me though. I think it's about time to talk about the worlds. Thankfully, due to the hardware of the PS4 and Xbox One, worlds finally are much larger than previous games and have so much more to explore. No more empty hallways. I'm talking about you, Birth by Sleep. And look, NPCs. Encouraging this exploration are these Mickey-shaped lucky emblems, which grant you certain rewards if you snap a picture of them with the gummy phone. Oh yeah, Sora has a phone now. Yeah, that's the thing. So we start with Olympus. This was a great way to start the game. It got you used to all of the new additions in this entry, and it did that very well. It was a little weird how they introduced Sora with those new abilities though. You'd think Sora would have to learn these powers over time, but no, he just gets them randomly in the first world. It really doesn't fit well with the story where he's supposed to be stripped of all his powers. This world only has one real gimmick to it, but it's really short, and that is the Shield Slitter. It controls a little weirdly, but it's a nice change of pace sometimes. Both the Rock Titan and the final boss Titans were really fun. The Rock Titan including a special attraction flow only available through certain scenarios. The length of the world was also perfect for me. I also love being able to play through this world in the Kingdom Hearts 2 outfit for Sora. This ended up being one of my favorite worlds in the end. After you finish this first world, you make your trip to the Realm of Darkness as Riku. I loved being able to play as him, and I wish we could for longer. This particular boss was nothing special though. Next up we got Twilight Town, and I'm sad to say this place got shafted big time. It's significantly smaller and shorter than the world in KH2. It removes large areas and iconic places, which feels really disappointing. When we arrive, we fight one of the many demon tides this game includes. After that, this world works more as a hub world, with some more story to explore with the Haunted Mansion. This town is also where the bistro is located, and you can also travel to the 100 Acre Woods from here. This world is usually a fun little break from normal combat by playing some minigames, but similar to Twilight Town itself, it caught the shaft and just has one minigame 3 times. Overall, I enjoyed the short amount of content this world included. Toy Story starts off really strong when we get to explore a beautiful recreation of Andy's room and outside his house as the toy versions of Sora, Donald, and Goofy. Before this, we get a fun fake-out cutscene that is basically Final Fantasy Versus 13, and you cannot change my mind. We then move to a giant toy store, which sadly is not this one. I really enjoyed exploring all the different stores, some including some cool Easter eggs. The gimmick of this world is a pretty big part of it, unfortunately, and that is the Gigas, which are giant toy mechs that can be controlled by Sora in a first-person shooter type matter. This is fun at first, but it gets old pretty quickly. You don't have to go in the Gigas, but it's a lot harder to kill them without it, especially on critical mode, making it a no-brainer to use them. I understand this kind of ruined the world for some people, but it honestly didn't for me. I really enjoyed this world, and it was my favorite world in the game for a while. The first boss we have is the doll, which was pretty creative. We end it with a pretty decent fight with the UFO. It was alright. Now Corona. No, not that Corona. Corona is definitely one of the most beautiful worlds in the game for me. We explore throughout the Kingdom of Corona, which some may feel is uninspired, but I didn't really care. I still love this world anyways. The dancing minigame was pretty fun too. The final boss of this world is a giant Heartless over the tower. I really like this fight and learning its attack patterns. There's not really much else to say about this world though. It's pretty standard, but in a good way. The following world, Monstropolis, felt a little underwhelming to me. It felt kinda small too. That doesn't necessarily make it bad. In fact, I think it's good. It's just nothing really special. You explore all throughout Monsters Inc. It ends with a boss fight with a giant Unversed. This fight wasn't the best for me. It felt a little unfair at times, but it was okay. This cutscene, however, redeems the few bad parts of this world.
Let me go!
Over here, Sully!
Close it, quick!
I suppose now is a good time to bring up a gripe I have with a lot of the bosses in Kingdom Hearts 3. There are too many random giant Heartless battles and not enough humanoid ones. A better balance of the two would have been much appreciated. Next up is Arendelle. This is a tough one. On my first playthrough, I didn't mind this world, but the more I played it, I realized just how mediocre it really was. You're basically just going up and down this pretty uninspired mountain. I don't think Frozen was the best choice for this world in this game, and I'm not just saying that because of my dislike for the movie. You know they included it just because of the slimy mouse telling them to. I suggest watching this video by the Game Theorists. They have a really good explanation of what Arendelle could have been to make it great, and why it isn't great. We get to fight Marshmallow in a good mini-boss afterwards. The highlight of the world is definitely the labyrinth. It really was pretty confusing to find your way through it, so that was pretty fun. The world ends with an enjoyable fight against a giant Ice Wolf Heartless. The Caribbean is also kinda difficult to review. The world features pirate ship combat that is a lot more enjoyable than I thought it would be. It controls pretty well and the combat is decent. We also get some underwater combat, which is good compared to previous games' underwater combat, but I still prefer just fighting on land. Now this world is just straight up huge. It is island based and very explorable. Though for most people, including myself, most of that exploring will be done post game, making the world not that special the first time around. On a good note, this world is beautiful and the clashing art styles of the characters actually blends well this time around. Kingdom Hearts 2, I'm looking at you. The crab collecting part is a little tedious, but not too bad. The first boss is probably the worst boss in the game because you have to use these really awkward flying combat to shoot down the boss. Next boss is on a ship against Luxords and is good for what it is. The final boss for the world was awesome. It's Davy Jones and it's finally a humanoid battle. Lastly, for the Disney worlds, we have San Francisco. This world is pretty big and very vertical. I like the giant city atmosphere. Thanks to the wall climbing and air step, climbing these buildings is a breeze. This world included these little fun parkour minigames where you have to collect rings as fast as possible. The bosses for this world aren't that good in my opinion though. The Dark Cubes were decent, but Dark Baymax wasn't that great for me, mostly because of the untrustworthy flying combat. Now with all of the Disney worlds out of the way, now we can move on to what was pretty much just a Kingdom Hearts fan's dream from this point onwards. We start by heading back to the Realm of Darkness and fighting another Demon Tide as Riku. Afterwards, we have a great humanoid fight against Anti-Aqua. This was really a standout for me. Now we move on to the Land of Departure. See what I mean when I said it was really picking up? And fight Vanitas as Aqua. It was pretty cool being able to control her new character again, but she was just recycled from 0.2. The fight was enjoyable though. Now we've reached Endgame, the Keyblade Graveyard. And god, I love this world. It was pretty much just a giant fun boss rush. First we fight a great callback to the 1000 Heartless battle from Kingdom Hearts 2 by fighting a crap ton of Heartless, Nobodies, and Unversed. Then we fought the Lich in every Disney world. The actual fight of this was good, but it dragged on a little too long, having to defeat it for a total of 7 times. After that, it's another Demon Tide. Yay. After that, we have a ton of fights with the organization members, with some help from some unexpected party members. These battles started with Ansem, Young Riku, and Xigbar. Then Marluxia, Larxene, and Luxord. Then Vanitas and Terra Xehanort. Then Saïx and Xion. Yeah, it's a lot, and it's also awesome. Some of these fights are really hard too. The last one before the final boss is Ansem, Xemnas, and Young Xehanort. The boss is especially great and extremely challenging on critical mode. We now move on to the final world. Not the final world of the game, it's actually called the final world. Anyways, all we do here, gameplay wise, is collect some parts of Sora, so it's extremely short. Fun fact though, by collecting more Soras than you're required, you can gain small health boosts. This world is accessed partway through the Keyblade Graveyard. The final world of the game, Scala Adkylum, from the trailer, looked like this world would be huge, beautiful, and highly explorable. Instead, it was just the area of the final boss. You start off the final boss by fighting Armored Xehanort. Just an FYI, this might not be considered part of the final boss for most people. I just include them together when I think about them. Anyways, this part was very good. I didn't really like having to fight a portion underwater, but that didn't take away from the battle for me. Now the final stage of the final boss, Xehanort carrying the Keyblade. This is most likely my favorite boss in the game. It's Kingdom Hearts 3 combat at its finest. I found it quite difficult on all 3 difficulty modes I played, but especially critical. His desperation move is insanely powerful and takes a lot of practice to get through. And at some point you are forced to become Anti-Form Sora, a welcome addition to the fight. This might just be my favorite final boss of a Kingdom Hearts game, but it's really hard to say. The conclusion afterwards was great, and you can't tell me that ending cutscene isn't the best thing you've ever seen. Now this game didn't have a ton of post-game content, which is kind of disappointing, but we had a few gates to battle, and we also had a secret boss, which is pretty good, and I thought it was pretty hard, but not as hard as most super bosses in the other games. With that, we're finally done with the gameplay. Now we can move on to the graphics and performance. I played this game on Xbox One S. I know, an Xbox, don't hurt me. I'm so glad I did. The game is just eye candy, and especially at 1440p resolution. The game faithfully recreates all the Disney worlds included. It really feels like you're in the movie. Corona and Caribbean being the obvious standouts. The game aims for 60 FPS and keeps very close to it most of the time on the enhanced consoles. It's even really close to it on the base Xbox One and PS4. They're just more susceptible to frame drops. There is an option to lock it to 30 frames, but please, if you know what's good for you, do not activate it. The frame pacing is just horrendous. Now, the last section of the review, the music and voice acting. The music in this game keeps great tracks from the old games, remixes those, or has its original tracks. If you play Kingdom Hearts games, you already know the music is stellar, and this game is no exception. All the background music used in this review is from the game, and a particular favorite of mine is the theme for Scala Adkylum. Take a listen. This song was only played for literally 3 seconds unless you stopped to hear it, and it was never played again. I just had to mention that. Every Kingdom Hearts game has a track from Utada Hikaru for the intro, but this time around we have a song by her for the intro and ending cutscene, both of which I think are really good. The voice acting was good overall. They managed to get a lot of the cast from the Disney movies and previous Kingdom Hearts games to reprise their roles. When they couldn't get their original voice actors, they managed to find good replacements. The only one that stands out as particularly bad to me is Randall.
Wazowski! Where is it, you little one-eyed cretin?
Who cares? All that matters is that it's the last turn that you losers are ever gonna take.
In conclusion, I did not find this game disappointing at all. It met my expectations and exceeded them at some points. I know KH2 set the bar really high for this game, and I understand why people might have been disappointed, thinking all these years that Kingdom Hearts 3 would be almost exactly like Kingdom Hearts 2 in certain aspects, but I was not one of those people. I'm left extremely excited for the upcoming DLC and any other updates the game receives. I'd love to know what you guys think about Kingdom Hearts 3 in the comments below. It'd be really awesome if you enjoyed to subscribe so I can grow this channel. This has been my review of Kingdom Hearts 3 post-critical update. I will hopefully see you in the next video. Peace.